A model shoots and kills her husband and then turns the gun on herself. I have the sad case of the murder of Pajtim Krasniqi and the death by suicide of his wife. Welcome to Crime Fix. I'm Angenette Levy. The family of Pajtim Krasniqi is grieving a terrible loss. Pajtim didn't die because he was ill or because of an accident. He died the night before Thanksgiving because his wife shot him and killed him. This happened in Hallandale Beach, Florida, which is in Broward County, north of Miami, last Wednesday night. Hallandale Beach police told local media that ShotSpotter, that's a technology that detects the sounds of gunshots and reports them to a 911 call center, detected the sound of 5 gunshots, a short pause, and then 1 more gunshot. Police and medics went to the luxury high-rise. This is what it looks like on Google Maps, and they found a horrific scene. Both Pajtim Krasniqi and his wife, Sabrina Krasniqi, were suffering from gunshot wounds. They were dead. One of the bodies was on the balcony of the apartment. Local 10 News reported that an aerial image showed some roses and a teddy bear, and then a yellow tarp covering one of the bodies. It's hard to understand what could drive someone to do something like this, but police say Sabrina shot Pajtim and then shot herself, ending both of their lives. One of Pajtim's brothers told the International Business Times that Pajtim had told Sabrina that he wanted a divorce. He claims Sabrina had been unfaithful. Now, we don't have any way to verify that claim, but the family is in unspeakable pain and they are grieving, and they could be absolutely right. Pajtim's sister posted on Facebook about her loss and finding out about her brother's murder. My Thanksgiving Eve wasn't spent with my husband and children. It wasn't spent with friends. It was spent with police officers, detectives, and news reports talking about the vicious and senseless murder of my youngest brother by his wife. Pajtim's wife chose to take my brother's life away from him when she shot 5 bullets into his chest. The person he trusted the most, the person he chose to spend his life with, was the one who took his away from him. She betrayed him, his love, and his trust. She shattered my family. My siblings and I will never be the same. I'm terrified my mother will not ever recover. I love you always, Pajtim, R.I.P. Pajtim was part of a large Albanian-American family, and his family had lived in New York for a time, and at some point, he and Sabrina moved to Florida. Sabrina did some modeling, and these photos are from an online profile for her modeling work. She had actually appeared on Inside Edition a few years ago about men catcalling women wearing masks in New York City. Another family member of Pajtim's told a media outlet that Sabrina had stopped modeling since moving to Florida with Pajtim, and that she was a housewife, while Pajtim did something with stocks. A brother of Pajtim's released the following statement to Local 10, talking about his brother's strength. My brother Pajtim was a devoted brother, son, uncle, and friend. He had a love of life that few could ever hope to replicate. He was a fighter. He was one of the mentally toughest people I have ever had the privilege of knowing. After sustaining a devastating motorcycle accident in 2018, he was determined not to allow the doctors to amputate his leg. Despite all the evidence, this was the best path forward. Knowing full well saving his leg would lead to multiple surgeries, pain, and long recovery times, he met the challenge head on. He further disregarded doctors' orders and refused to take his pain medication during each of his surgery recoveries, as he refused to become addicted to the medications. Facing unfathomable odds, and despite those multiple surgeries and long healing times, he never complained. He never acted out. He took it all in stride. His strength and determination was infectious to those of us who knew him and will forever be a source of strength and pride for our family. He loved his nieces and nephews without parallel. It brings great joy to remember him smiling, laughing, and playing with the children. He was always the first to want to take them for ice cream, treat them to a movie, or simply play around the house. I want to tell you about Upside. It's a free app that gets you cash back on things like gas, groceries, and restaurants. This is real cash back, money that appears in your Upside app that you can transfer straight into your bank account. I used Upside recently when I went to Dunkin' Donuts for a cup of tea. I claimed an offer for Dunkin' on the app, paid as usual using a card, and followed the steps, and I got cash back. It's so easy. You can also use Upside at places like Shell, Exxon, 7-Eleven, Taco Bell, and many, many more. To find out how much you could earn, click the link in the description to download Upside or scan the QR code on your screen and use our promo code CRIMEFIX to get an extra 25 cents back on every gallon on your first tank of gas. That's promo code CRIMEFIX for extra cash back. I want to bring in Melba Pearson. She is a former prosecutor, and she actually lives in the area where this happened, or at least a short distance away. So, Melba, my first question here is, as a prosecutor, you're not going to file charges in this case. Obviously, there is nobody to charge, sadly, because both Sabrina and Pajtim are deceased. And Sabrina was the one who committed the homicide and then took her own life. But what do police still have to do to look into this and to tie up any loose ends?
Yeah, so first off, this is an incredibly tragic situation, and the news headlines have been buzzing about this for the last few days. And again, living, within 15, 20 minutes of where this happened, it's definitely very jarring, especially the area of town that this happened in. It's in Hallandale, which is, a fairly wealthy area. This was a luxury condominium. So again, people don't expect that sort of thing to happen there. Granted, we all know it could happen anywhere, but sure, the immediate gut instinct is like, oh my gosh, that happened here. And so there's that aspect. So the police department, the Hallandale Police Department, will be conducting a full investigation just to, number one, talk to family, friends, neighbors, just to be clear on what went on in the hours before this homicide, making sure that there's no one else involved and this is purely just a murder-suicide. Maybe trying to get as much as possible some answers as to why this happened. Of course, the medical examiner is going to conduct an autopsy on both of them, again, to confirm the cause of death. And if there's any additional information that comes from the medical examiner's report, then the detectives can look at that and decide moving forward if, again, any other avenues of investigation need to occur, or if this just going to be, okay, clearly a murder-suicide, this is consistent with what everyone else said, that's the end of it, and it'll be wrapped up fairly quickly.
And that was one of my questions, too. I mean, the family, one of the family members told the International Business Times that there had been some infidelity, that Sabrina had been unfaithful. We have no way of verifying that. But, that he wanted a divorce, Pajtim wanted a divorce. And, you could see the facts lending themselves to that theory because she's the one who took his life and then took her own life. So does law enforcement have a duty to investigate, to get those answers for the family, even though they're not going to charge anybody with a crime?
To the best of their ability, they should try get those answers. The reality is you don't always know why someone does something or what's going through someone's mind, especially to take such a desperate action, right? To kill your partner and then to kill yourself, you have to be in a very dark, depressed, and sad place. So I think the department will do their best to be able to give some answers to the family, but I don't know that they're ever going to have that full closure to really understand why this happened. They'll get some basics, they'll get basically a sketch as to what may have happened, but they're not going to get those conclusive answers that I know they might be longing for in the wake of such a tragic event.
Yeah, I don't know if any answer would ever make them feel better or make them feel whole or anything. I mean, this is just so brutal, and I just can't even imagine being in this family's shoes or any family's shoes who loses a loved one to gun violence in particular. Melba, one thing that shocks me about this a little bit is the fact that we have a woman committing this crime, a murder-suicide with a firearm. And not that women can't commit crimes with firearms, but I feel like this is something maybe that you would typically see a man do, a murder-suicide with a firearm. This is just so, I don't know, when you hear about women, dying by suicide and things like that, it's usually not this violent. Obviously, this is a murder-suicide. So this just to me seems very, it shocked me when I heard that a woman had done this.
Yeah, I mean, traditionally what we'd hear is that it is a man that would be the one to commit the murder-suicide. And sometimes it's tied to domestic violence, sometimes it's tied to mental illness or depression. And usually we don't see that with women. You would see that it might be, let's say, a homicide, and then, the person tries to move on with, a different partner or something along those lines, much like we've seen in many a TV show and heard on many a podcast. But again, again, I mean, we have to remember that when you have a firearm in the home, and I'm saying this as a gun owner, when you have a firearm in the home, it does increase the likelihood that this firearm could be used in the course of a suicide. Because again, you have very easy access. I mean, and so it just, when you're in that dark moment, it's very easy to make that split second decision that you can't take back. And so, and again, this is not to say one way or another whether or not guns should be in a home or not. That's not my point. But my point is the presence of a firearm in a home can exacerbate when you have those mental health issues going on. It can exacerbate the likelihood of something very, very deadly and terrible occurring. So my heart just goes out to this family because, again, both sides of the family, because remember, you have, a husband and wife, and, there's been holidays. They would normally, in most families, there'd be interaction and sort of that, cross interaction between different sides of the family. So I hope this is not a situation that ends up driving a permanent wedge that they can't grieve together because they both have lost someone they loved. I think it might be very tough because of the fact that, you're looking to assign blame that she was the one that took our loved one from us. But at the end of the day, both families are suffering tremendous pain right now.
Yeah, most certainly. I mean, it's horrific. I mean, Pajtim's family in particular, I mean, I just can't even imagine. And you're right. And one thing that gets me about this too, you never know what goes on behind closed doors in somebody's relationship. And obviously Sabrina was a very beautiful woman who had modeled at one point in time. And I'm sure that they make a picture perfect couple. There is no such thing as perfect, but a picture perfect looking couple in a photograph. But something was going on behind the scenes that was not good. I mean, something went terribly, horribly wrong. And was she obviously suffering from some type of mental illness? Was there some infidelity? Was this you're not going to leave me and so I'm taking you out because nobody else is going to have you and I can't live without you, that type of thing. Yikes. I mean, it's like the ultimate act of control. To the very end. And it makes you wonder what was going on behind closed doors.
And that's why I'm hopeful that in the investigation, if they talk to the friends and family, especially of her, it's to understand sort of that picture of, was she struggling with mental illness? Was she depressed? Or was she controlling and violent? Because again, women can be abusers too, and men can be victims or survivors of domestic violence. So it is a possibility that she could have been abusive towards him as well. We don't know because again, we don't know what happens behind closed doors. And sometimes people are too embarrassed to share what's really happening at home, especially, again, not saying that he is a victim of domestic violence. We don't know that. But, men are often reluctant to disclose that out of fears of, being emasculated or just being ridiculed or something along those lines. So I would definitely use this as an opportunity to say that, if anybody is dealing with, domestic violence at home, whether you're male or female, non-binary, whatever the case may be, listen, there's resources out there that can help you. And don't suffer in silence because these things very rarely end well. And so if you're in an abusive situation, do everything within your power to be able to leave.
I know one of the family members had remarked to the media, and there have been several family members who've kind of spoken that Sabrina had some type of temper, that she had a really bad temper. So who knows what could have been going on in that condo. It would be interesting to talk to maybe some neighbors as well. Who knows if the neighbors ever saw anything or heard anything, if there was some arguing going on or things of that nature.
Exactly. I mean, the neighbors can paint a picture as well, because if they heard, fights and plates breaking and that sort of thing, they can definitely share that, hey, listen, this is not as picture perfect as one may believe. I'd be curious to know if the police have ever responded to their home in the past, because again, that could shed some light on what was happening in their relationship. So again, lots of questions, not a whole lot of answers right now, and just a lot of pain and sadness, clearly.
Yeah, it is really a tragedy. Thank you so much, Melba Pearson. And we know that the funeral services are planned for Pajtim Krasniqi, so his family will be laying him to rest soon. Thank you again for coming on, Melba. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
And that's it for this episode of Crime Fix. I'm Angenette Levy. Thanks so much for being with me. I'll see you back here next time.